Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy
Cheers.
Hour Chats. I've already spilled Johanna's AHA Sparkling Water, but this is still brought to you by AHA Sparkling Water. We haven't been paid yet.
Pay us.
Pay us.
You know our Instagram.
Because we repping the product. Okay, so the post we're talking about today is one that just went live on Resilience to Reform this morning. It's called My Best Friend by Johanna Bergland. It's one that resonates with me hugely, just because when you're in active addiction, there's nothing else that matters other than the drug itself. No matter what your drug of choice is, whether it's meth, heroin, coke, crack, or alcohol, you're willing to put that above everybody else, above your children, above your friendships, your family. It really doesn't matter, does it?
No. Your whole life.
Your whole life. Your life becomes consumed with that use. And like Johanna said in numerous posts, she wasn't just drinking to have fun. It got to a point where she was drinking to survive or to function. And I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there where if I don't use that day, you just don't feel normal. And you know that what you're doing is wrong.
Right.
And it's unhealthy, but you just don't care.
No.
So just kind of talk about that best friend concept.
Yeah, like Noah said, when I first started drinking, it was to have fun and using, and I would say the first 4 years of my use were fun. I did enjoy myself, and it was relaxing, and it was just a way to escape, but then that crossed over to straight up addiction, where I was just surviving, and it was really horrible. And I would wake up every morning, start drinking. I would drink throughout the day. I would drink until I would pass out at night. I put all my family and friends on the back burner. They didn't even matter or really exist to me anymore.
Did you ever get to the point where you started not going to Christmas, not going to Thanksgiving? Did you get to that point where you started missing major holidays? I remember calling home one time and missing a Thanksgiving, and I don't know if I ever told my family this, but it was strictly, I didn't want to make the drive because I had just gotten off a bender and I wanted that bender to continue, and I just called home and said I was sick, so I'm sorry for that. And those are the times where I just really chose the drug over my family. Mm-hmm. I mean, my daughter wasn't born yet, but that doesn't matter.
Right.
I still, whether you have kids or not, it's your other family and friends should matter just as much, and that just isn't the case when you're in active addiction.
Right. No, I didn't. I always showed up to major events like Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, but I would be completely drunk.
Yeah.
Like the last Christmas at Grandma and Grandpa's, I really don't remember.
Yeah. I guess it's a little easier when alcohol is your drug of choice, which is scary because it can be so dangerous, but at the same time, socially acceptable.
Right.
I mean, it's not socially acceptable to be belligerent, but in a way it still is, because it'd just be like, I mean, you said before, you got to the point where they're just like, oh, that's Johanna.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I think they would probably think would be strange if I wasn't that intoxicated.
Yeah.
But at that point, I had been drinking so much that my tolerance was so high that I could just keep drinking and drinking and drinking and just kind of maintain at a steady level, because I had been drinking for so long and so often that I could just drink and drink and drink and it didn't even matter, which is also scary.
Yeah.
That's really scary. But yeah, like my best friend, she lives in Portland, and I didn't talk to her for probably over a year because I didn't want, even though I couldn't see her face to face, I knew she would know that I was intoxicated, and I didn't even want to face her on that. And that's another reason why I did cut my family and friends off, is because I didn't want them to see how drunk I was all the time.
Yeah, one thing I learned in treatment was how you'll shrink your world around you to just the people who anyone who's going to say no to the lifestyle you're living, you just push them out.
Yep.
And your world becomes small because the only people you're keeping around you are the people who are living your kind of life.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're an alcoholic, you're just hanging out with other alcoholics. If you're a heroin addict, you're hanging out with other heroin addicts or people who are fine with that lifestyle.
Right. And
whether you're using needles or not using needles, there's different levels to all these, you know, not just addiction, but what's socially acceptable in those circles. Because...
and then you don't feel bad about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it all comes down to, is because in the end, whatever you were trying to hide in the first place is really what you eventually have to face in sobriety.
Right.
Whatever you were trying to cover up, like you said, it worked. And it didn't just work, and it wasn't just about you were having fun, but whatever you were trying to suppress, it was suppressing that.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually, you're left with the problem, which is you. And you have to fix you, or it's just going to be a reoccurring cycle of addiction. And
insanity.
One thing, yeah, exactly. Repeating the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Definitely. But one thing you wrote in the post I really liked was the longer you stayed sober, the more you built that self-esteem and that self-worth. And I've learned, like, I'm 4 years into recovery now, or not quite recovery, but I've been clean for 4 years.
Right.
And I still find just this self-doubt that creeps back in, and this self-image I keep of myself that I'm less than, whether it's I don't feel I'm as successful next to my siblings, or I don't feel I'm as good looking next to other guys, or as smart next to other coworkers, and I just have this negative image of myself, and that was the stuff I was trying to suppress as a teenager or an adolescent, and now I'm 34 years old, living back with mom, and that doesn't help the situation, because it's not, you don't have to look far to find material to talk down on myself with, but that's part of this platform. That's part of what I'm doing with my writings, is trying to overcome that stuff, and people tell me all the time, you know, don't beat yourself up, there's a lot of good you're doing, and that's awesome. And I'm starting to build that self-esteem and that self-confidence, but it doesn't just happen overnight.
No.
It is repetition, and it's putting in the work day in and day out, just like sobriety or clean time. And the longer I get, the more confident I get. So that's what I really liked when you said that. So I appreciate that. That part really stuck out for me. I mean, what are your thoughts on that topic?
I agree. I still struggle to this day with self-esteem issues, and I've been sober 7 years, and I think for me that's going to be an ongoing process. And if you are in the process of getting sober or thinking about getting sober, give yourself some time and be patient.
Yeah.
Just because it takes time for you to heal yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically before you can start seeing those
gains,
right,
or the progress,
right,
yep.
right, of having self-esteem. And when I was in treatment, one of my assignments was to do 10 things that I like about myself, and I was like, I can't even think of like 2 things I like about myself, let alone 10.
Yeah.
And just doing little things like that to help motivate you and to speed that process up a little bit, because it does take time, and it's, once you get there, it's like an aha moment.
Yeah.
Like,
well, okay, so for me, it was like a few weeks ago, I wrote one of my old posts, self-doubt.
Okay.
I just re-pushed it out on social media, and all these ladies on Facebook, like, from my past, just started saying all these nice things about me, like, you know, don't forget about this, and they just started writing all these, like, just thing after thing, and it's just the next person chimed in, in, and I'm just like, these are things I just ignored to see, or would refuse to admit, and now the longer I've been clean and sober, when these things are pointed out, I'm like, you know what, that is me.
Yeah.
And that is me, and I can see that, and thank you for pointing that out.
Right.
And it was just like, I actually believed the things they were saying, which, rewind, that wouldn't have been the case. I'd have been like, oh, they're just trying to be nice.
Yeah, right.
But now, the longer I've been clean and sober, I can actually admit, like, yeah, you know what, I am those things.
Yeah.
So, that felt good. Thank you for everyone that wrote comments on that post. I appreciate it. It meant a lot to me. Okay, the last one that I just want to talk about is rebuilding these relationships. Mm-hmm. And a big one for me has been my brother, because my addiction really drove a wedge in between our relationship. He was obviously disappointed in the decisions I made and the lifestyle I chose and the risk I put his family and our family at with my addiction. Mm-hmm. And for you, it was your sister. And not that it was a bad relationship, but it just wasn't much of a relationship until you got sober.
Right.
And now we're both on the other side, sober, and now we both have these great relationships with our siblings, and it's all because we made a conscious decision to get clean.
Right. And I never expected for it to even happen. It just happened naturally, which is even cooler, because it's not like I pressed on it. It's not like, oh, I have to have this awesome relationship with my sister. And I think that because it came so naturally, I think that's why I appreciate it even more. But yeah, it's just, we never hung out ever before, unless she was driving me around when I was intoxicated to like Taco Bell or something like that. But now, yeah, we have a great relationship, and we talk literally every single day, and just laugh and cry together, and it's really awesome.
Any last words to someone who's newly sober or newly clean?
Patience, gratitude, having a good connection with your spiritual being, whoever or whatever that may be. Listen.
Shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth and listen.
Shut your mouth and listen.
Seriously, though.
Very good advice. That it reminds me of a story. So my old sponsor, one of our writers, contributors, Dennis Cockerham, he was down in the residential drug abuse program, the RDAP program, the one I took to get a year off my sentence, and he was down there, and he's a big Narcotics Anonymous guy.
Okay.
And he was just fighting it. He doesn't get the year off, but his sponsor told him, I want you to take this program. So he took it. And he's down there, and he says, he's just fighting the DTSs, which are the drug treatment specialists. And and he's like, I don't hear recovery. And the guy said, well, maybe if you would shut the hell up for 2 seconds, you might.
It's
so
true.
It's like, so when you said that, I totally thought of Dennis in RDAP and Mr. Frank telling them to shut the hell up for 2 seconds. And, but it's true.
It is true.
You don't know everything until you give it a shot. So be patient. And
try new things. If it doesn't work, then try the next thing. If that doesn't work, try the next thing. Yeah. Keep trying until it does work.
Yeah. So that's it for this week. My best friend. Stay clean, stay sober, and go find your best friend.
And stay happy.
Stay happy.
Cheers.
Definitely. Much happier on this side.